The storm had no master that night. It rolled across the dark skies of the frontier world of Vera, tearing open the heavens with crackling light. Winds screamed through the mountain passes, lifting dust, snow, and broken stone into the air. For the settlers who lived in the valleys, storms were simply dangerous things to endure. But for the hunters moving quietly under the shadow of the clouds, the storm was more than weather. It was a sign. Somewhere in the mountains, hidden deep within the ridges, lived the wild girl. Stories about her had spread across the settlements, like sparks in dry grass. Farmers whispered her name around campfires. Traders swore they had seen her in the distance, moving with unnatural grace. And mercenaries spoke of the creature that followed her. A dragon, vast as a house, its wings stitched with lightning, its scales glowing faintly in the dark. For most, she was only a myth. For the alien warlords who ruled half the frontier, she was prey. Captain Rovan of the Creel Dominion marched at the front of his squad, claws scraping against the stone as his soldiers moved behind him. Their armor was sleek, dark, and built to resist energy strikes. The Creel had crossed the galaxy for conquest before, but this world had offered something new, the promise of an ancient power hidden in the storms. If the girl truly commanded it, then she must be captured. Rovan's second in command, a tall warrior named Zarak, scanned the slopes with his night vision lens. Tracks, he growled in his guttural voice, clawed feet. Heavy, not human. Beast, Rovan said coldly. His mandibles clicked as he gave the order. Stay sharp. If the girl is near, she will not leave it. Behind them, human mercenaries followed uneasily. They had been hired by the Creel with promises of wealth and power. Most of them did not care about the girl's legend. They only cared about payment. But high above, where the storm roared loudest, the girl already knew they were coming. Her name was Serenia. She crouched near the edge of a cliff, her eyes bright with reflected lightning. The storm winds tangled her hair and tugged at her torn clothes, but she did not flinch. She had grown up in the mountains, and to her the storm was not an enemy. It was a voice she had always known. Beside her, Thyros, the dragon, shifted his great body. His scales glimmered like shards of stormlight, and his breath steamed in the cold night air. His long wings curled around him, shielding Serenia from the sharpest gusts. His eyes, deep and golden, studied her silently. They come again, she whispered, placing her hand against the dragon's neck. They will not stop. Thyros rumbled, a sound that rolled like distant thunder. Serenia had lived many years on the run. She remembered little of her earliest childhood, only flashes of her people, the storm tamers. They had been guardians of the frontier long before settlers and alien conquerors arrived. Her clan could hear the voice of the skies, call the rains, and summon winds to break armies. But war had come, and one by one her people had been hunted down. Only she and Thyros had survived. The Creel did not see her as a child of the storm. To them, she was a prize. Serenia rose and looked into the valley where faint torches moved like insects. She felt the pull of the storm around her, and her heartbeat quickened. She could run farther into the mountains, but the Creel would follow. Always they followed. Her hand pressed harder against Thyros's scales. We make our stand another night, she whispered, but not here, not yet. The dragon spread his wings, vast and black against the lightning-torn sky, and leapt into the storm. With Serenia on his back, they vanished into the night. In Tau. The valley below, Kale trudged behind his patrol. He was human, a soldier under the Dominion's flag. His armor was dented, his rifle scarred from years of use. Unlike many of his squad, he was not there by choice. Poverty had pressed him into service. Kale listened as the Creel officers barked orders, their voices harsh and metallic through their helmets. He had heard the stories of the wild girl, but part of him wondered if they were true. Dragons? Storm? Tamers? Such things sounded like legends told to children, yet he could not forget the night, months earlier, when he had seen a shadow against the sky. Vast wings spread wide, glowing faintly as a lightning storm raged behind them. Move faster. Human, Zirak snarled, shoving him forward. Kale bit back his anger and kept walking. He had learned long ago that open defiance against the Creel meant death, but in his heart, he began to hope that the wild girl was real. If she truly fought against the Dominion, maybe she was the spark the settlers needed. The storm thickened. Rain hammered down on the patrol, energy lanterns flickered. Then, without warning, the wind howled with unnatural force. Lightning split the sky, and for a brief instant, high above the cliffs, Kyle saw her. A girl, standing tall against the storm, hair streaming in the wind, a dragon's shadow at her side. The moment vanished as quickly as it came, but it burned into Kale's mind like fire. Captain Rovan roared in frustration as the storm scattered his patrol. He knew the girl was near. He could feel it. Every time the Dominion closed in, the storms grew worse. "Find her," he commanded. "Net the beast if you must, but bring her to me alive." The hunters surged forward, weapons ready, but Serenia was already gone. By dawn, the storm had broken. The mountains lay quiet again, mist curling around the ridges. Kyle's patrol returned to camp, exhausted and battered. Rumors spread quickly. Some swore they had seen the dragon. Others claimed the girl had called the storm itself. Kyle sat, silently, cleaning his weapon, his mind restless. He had seen her with his own eyes. She was real, and deep inside, something told him that this girl was more than just prey. She was hope. High in the mountains, Serenia and Thyros rested in a hidden cave. The dragon curled protectively around her as she drifted into uneasy sleep. The hunters would never stop. But neither would she. She was Serenia, last of the storm tamers, and the storm itself walked with her. The morning sun rose slowly over the mountains of Vera, spilling gold across the jagged peaks. Mist still clung to the valleys, curling like smoke between the cliffs. The storm had passed, but its memory lingered. Lightning scars stretched across. Stone and uprooted trees lay broken where the winds had struck hardest. In the hidden cave, Serenia opened her eyes. The storm had drained her strength. Even when she had not fully called it, the skies still responded to her presence. That was the curse and the gift of being a storm tamer. The heavens were never silent. Beside her, Thyros stirred. His scales shimmered faintly in the weak sunlight, and he blinked with slow, heavy eyes. The dragon had carried her far through the night, and though his body was vast and powerful, even he tired. Serenia placed a hand against his warm side. "Rest a little more," she whispered. "The hunters will search, but not yet. We are safe for now." Thyros exhaled a deep rumble like distant thunder before lowering his head again. His great golden eye closed. Serenia rose and stepped to the cave's mouth. From there, she could see the valley below. Already, smoke trails marked the Creel camp. They were regrouping after the storm had scattered them. She knew they would climb again, searching for her. They always did. Her jaw tightened. She could not run forever, but she was not yet ready to face them directly. The storm would answer her call, yes, but she did not yet have full mastery of her gift. If she burned too brightly, the storm itself might consume her. She clenched her fists. She needed allies. But who among settlers or soldiers would dare stand against the Creel? In the Dominion camp, Kale sat apart from the others, sharpening his blade with slow, careful strokes. His squadmates laughed and argued nearby, tossing dice and sharing rations, but Kale's mind was elsewhere. He could not shake the memory of the night before, the sight of the girl standing against the storm, her dragon's shadow vast behind her. It had not been a trick of lightning. He had seen her clearly. "She's real," he whispered to himself. "She's real." "Talking to yourself again, Kale?" One of the mercenaries jeered. It was Dern, a broad-shouldered man with a scar across his cheek. He tossed a pebble toward Kale. "Careful, or the Creel will think you've lost your mind." Kale ignored him. He had no desire to argue. Dern snorted. "You still dream of rebels? Forget the girl. She's prey. The Creel will catch her, same as they crush everything else." Kale's hand tightened on his blade, but he said nothing. Inside, though, a different fire burned. If the girl truly had power, maybe she could fight back. Maybe she could do what no settler or soldier had dared, stand against the Dominion. That evening, the patrols went out again. Kyle marched with his squad through the lower valleys, eyes scanning the cliffs. The Creel officers barked orders, demanding every shadow be searched. Hours passed with no sign of the girl. Then as the sun began to fall, Kale lagged behind the patrol. Something in the air caught his attention, the faint smell of ozone, sharp and biting. It was the scent left behind by storms, yet no storm had broken here today. He looked up. There, across the ridge, a figure moved, a girl quick as a deer leaping from rock to rock. Her hair streamed behind her, and though the distance was great, Kyle knew at once it was her. His breath caught. Before he could stop himself, he broke from the patrol, chasing the figure. His boots struck stone, his lungs burned, but he did not care. He had to see her again. "Kale," Dern's voice shouted behind him. "Where are you going?" Kale ignored him and kept running. Serenia had seen him long before he saw her. From the ridge she watched the human soldier break away from the others and give chase. For a moment she considered fleeing. Soldiers never came alone unless they were hunting. But something in his face, even from afar, gave her pause. His eyes were not cold like the Creels nor greedy like the mercenaries. They were searching, almost desperate. She waited until he reached the ridge, then stepped into view. Kyle froze. There she was, the wild girl, no longer just a shadow in the storm. She stood before him, thin but strong, her eyes glowing faintly, as though they carried the storm inside them. "You're real?" he breathed. Serenia tilted her head. "And you are foolish," she said softly. "You left your pack. They will notice. They will come." Kyle took a careful step forward, hands raised. "I don't mean harm. I only want to talk." "Talk?" Her voice was wary. "Your kind hunts me." "My kind?" Kyle's jaw tightened. "The Creel are not my kind. I'm only here because I was forced to serve. But I saw you last night. You called the storm." Her eyes narrowed. "And if I did?" "Then you're hope," Kyle said quietly. "Hope for all of us." The words struck Serenia strangely. She had expected fear or threats, but not hope. She studied him, her instincts prickling. Could he be trusted? Or was this another trap? Before she could decide, a low rumble shook the ground. From the shadows of the cliffs, Thyros emerged. His wings unfurled, blocking the fading sun, and his golden eyes locked on Kale. Kale froze as the dragon stepped forward, smoke curling from its nostrils. Serenia lifted a hand. "Peace, Thyros. He is alone." The dragon rumbled again but halted. His gaze, however, never left Kale. Kale swallowed hard but did not back away. Instead, he lowered his head respectfully. "I don't want to fight you," he said to the beast. Then to Serenia. "If you're truly hunted, then let me help you." "Why?" Serenia asked sharply. "Why risk death for a stranger?" Kale met her eyes. "Because I'm tired of serving monsters, because my people need someone to stand against them. And because..." He hesitated, then said, "Because when I saw you in the storm, I believed again." The silence stretched. Thunder rumbled faintly in the distance. Finally, Serenia lowered her hand. "Perhaps the storm brought you for a reason," she said. "But know this, soldier. If you betray me, Thyros will end you before your heart beats twice." Kale nodded once. "Fair enough." From that night onward, an unlikely alliance began. Kale would slip away from his squad whenever he could, bringing news of the Dominion patrols and the mercenaries' plans. Serenia listened carefully, always. Cautious but slowly she began to trust. In return she told him fragments of her past, the fall of the storm tamers, the bond between her and Thyros, the way the storms answered her call. Kyle listened in wonder, realizing her people were not myths. They had been guardians, protectors. Days passed and their bond grew. Yet danger pressed closer. Captain Rovan had not failed to notice Kale's strange absences, and he was not a fool. One evening, as the Creel commander studied the maps of the Ao Mountains, Zerak leaned close. "The human strays too often," Zerak hissed. "Shall I end him?" Rovan's mandibles clicked in thought. Then he smiled coldly. "No, not yet. Follow him. If he has found the girl, he will lead us to her." High above, in the hidden cave, Serenia stood with Kale and Thyros. The night sky glittered with stars, but on the horizon clouds were gathering once more. "The storm calls," Serenia whispered. "Something is coming." Kale looked at her, at the dragon, at the endless sky. He felt a weight in his chest, both fear and hope. Whatever lay ahead, he knew one thing. He would not leave her side. For the first time in years, Kale felt alive, and, in the mountains of Vera, the first threads of rebellion began to weave together. The days after Kale's meeting with Serenia passed like whispers carried on the wind. The mountains seemed quieter, as though holding their breath. But deep inside, both Kale and Serenia knew the silence was only an illusion. The Creel Dominion was still hunting, and it would not stop. Each evening, Kale slipped away from his squad, careful to move in shadows so the Creel officers would not see. His absence was dangerous, but he felt drawn to Serenia and Thyros, as if destiny itself pulled him toward them. In the hidden cave, he would find the wild girl waiting. Sometimes she sat beside a small fire, her dragon curled behind her like a living wall of stormlight. Other times she stood at the edge of the cliffs, her eyes fixed on the horizon as though she could read the sky. Kyle learned quickly that Serenia was not a normal girl. Her movements were sharp, fluid, like the flight of a hawk. Her eyes glowed faintly, not from firelight but from something within. When she spoke, her voice carried a weight older than her years, but most of all, he learned that she carried the burden of a lost people. One night, as the storm clouds gathered over the mountains, Kale sat across from her near the cave's entrance. The fire crackled softly between them. Thyros shifted his wings in the shadows, golden eyes half closed but always watching. Serenia broke the silence. "Do you know why the Creel want me?" Kyle shook his head. "They say many things. Some believe your dragon is a weapon. Others think you command storms, but none of them know the truth, do they?" She looked at him, the firelight painting her face. "No, they do not. But you should." Kyle leaned forward, listening. "My people were the storm tamers," she said slowly. "Long ago, before settlers came, before the Creel invaded, we lived in harmony with this world. We were not rulers. We were guardians. The storms here are alive, Kale. They are not accidents of weather. They are a force that breathes, a spirit that moves through the sky. My people could hear its voice, and in return it trusted us with its power." Kyle's eyes widened. "Alive? You mean the storms themselves?" "Yes," Serenia said, firmly. "Every flash of lightning, every crash of thunder, every gust of wind, it is part of a living cycle, and my dragon Thyros is bound to it. He is no ordinary beast. He is a keeper, a bridge between sky and earth." Thyros rumbled low, as if to agree. Serenia lowered her gaze. But the Creel feared what they could not control. They slaughtered my clan, one by one. They believed if they killed the storm tamers, the storms would break. But they did not understand. The storms cannot be killed. They can only be silenced if the bond is broken. That is why they hunt me. If they capture me and sever my bond, they will enslave Thyros, and with his power they could command the storms themselves. Imagine an army that carries thunder across the stars. No world could resist them. Kyle felt a chill. He imagined the Creel war fleets, already feared across the frontier, now armed with storms themselves. No resistance could survive. He clenched his fists. "Then they must never capture you." "Never." Serenia's eyes softened slightly. "You speak as though you would fight them yourself." "I would," Kyle said. "I have seen their cruelty. I have carried their chains long enough. If the storms stand against them, then I will stand with the storms. For the first time, Serenia allowed a faint smile. Perhaps the storm chose well. The following day, Kale returned to camp. His squad was restless. Rumors had spread. Some mercenaries claimed they had seen lightning strike only Creel patrols, leaving humans unharmed. Others swore the girl could summon thunder with a single cry. Captain Rovan listened with interest. His mandibles clicked as he studied the maps of the mountains. "She is close," he hissed. "I can feel her. She plays with us, calling storms to test our patience, but she will slip. She must." Zirak leaned in. "Shall I bait her out? Burn the villages in the valleys. She will come if her precious humans cry loud enough." Rovan considered. "Perhaps, but there is another way. The human soldier, Kael. He strays. He wanders. He hides something. Watch him, follow him. If he leads us to her, then both will be ours." That night, Kael climbed again into the mountains. His heart was heavy. He knew eyes were beginning to watch him, though he tried to move, with care. Still, he could not stay away. He found Serenia waiting at the cliffs. Storm clouds boiled above them, lightning flashing faintly across the sky. "They are closing in," Serenia said without turning. "The winds tell me. I feel their weight on the mountains." Kale moved closer. "Then we need to strike first. If we wait, they'll surround us." She looked at him, eyes sharp. "You think like a soldier." "I was a soldier," Kyle said, bitterly. "But I will not fight for them anymore. I'll fight for you." Her gaze lingered on him, testing his words. Then she nodded. "There is something you must see." She placed her hand on his arm, and together they climbed higher, deeper into the peaks until they reached a plateau. At its center stood ruins, broken stone pillars, weathered carvings, and a circle of ancient markings burned into the rock. "This was the heart of my people," Serenia whispered. "Here." The bond was forged. Kyle stepped closer. Awe filling him. Strange symbols glowed faintly along the stone, pulsing like veins of lightning. He could feel energy humming under his boots, alive and restless. Serenia knelt, placing both hands on the circle. The storm above stirred, clouds darkening, thunder rolling. Her voice was calm, steady. "Do you see now? This is no myth. The storms live, and through me they remember." The air crackled. Lightning arched between the pillars, bright as the sun. Kyle shielded his eyes, heart pounding. Then, with a sound like 1,000 drums, a bolt struck the ground around Serenia. For a moment she glowed with light, her hair streaming upward, her eyes white with power. Kale stared in awe. She was not merely a girl. She was the storm itself made flesh. The energy faded slowly, leaving her breathless but unbroken. She looked at him. "This is the truth, and it is why the Creel will never stop. If they take me, the storms will be chained. If they kill me, the storms may die with me." Kale dropped to one knee, pressing his hand to the glowing stone. "Then I swear they will never have you. Not while I still breathe." Thunder rumbled in reply, as though the storm itself had heard. But far below, in the darkness of the valleys, alien eyes watched. Zarek crouched behind the rocks, his night vision lens recording everything. The glow of the ruins, the girl's lightning, the human soldier kneeling before her. He smiled cruelly. "So this is your secret, wild girl, the storm's heart itself." He touched his comm link. "Captain, I have found them. The girl and her beast, and the human who guards her. They hide in the high ruins. Shall I strike?" Rovan's voice hissed through the speaker. "No, not yet. Hold your blade. We will bring the full force of the Dominion upon them. Prepare the siege. Tomorrow the storm will belong to us." Zarek's mandibles clicked with satisfaction. He turned his gaze back to the glowing plateau, watching Serenia and Kale as shadows of lightning flickered across their faces. "The storm is strong," he whispered, "but even storms can be broken." The night after Serenia revealed the ruins of her people, the mountains did not sleep. Clouds rolled endlessly across the peaks, and thunder growled like a warning animal. Serenia sat close to Thyros, her hand resting against his scales, while Kyle kept watch at the cave's mouth. The air was heavy, filled with tension. Both of them could feel it. "They are moving," Serenia said quietly, her eyes fixed on the storm above. "The Creel gather in the valleys. The storm tells me they will climb soon." Kale's jaw tightened. He had noticed the same signs in camp. For days the Dominion had been preparing, stockpiling weapons and calling in more soldiers. He had heard whispers of energy nets strong enough to bind even a dragon. "They're planning something big," Kyle muttered. "A siege. They want to end this in one strike." Serenia's gaze turned toward him. "Then we cannot fight alone." Kyle frowned. "What do you mean?" "There are settlers in the valleys," she said firmly. "Farmers, traders, families, who suffer under the Dominion's weight. They may fear the storm, but they hate the Creel more. If we stand together, we may resist. If we do not—" Her voice trailed off, but her meaning was clear. Alone, they would be crushed. Kyle's eyes narrowed in thought. He had lived among the settlers all his life. They were tough, but fear had broken them. Would they truly rise, even with a storm at their side? He looked at Serenia, at the faint glow in her eyes, at the dragon who rumbled softly behind her. Maybe they would. Maybe seeing her would ignite something long buried. "I'll go," Kale said at last. "I'll speak to them, but it's a risk. If anyone betrays us, the Creel will strike before we're ready." Serenia gave a small nod. "It is a risk we must take. The storm does not belong to me alone. It belongs to all who live beneath." The next day, Kyle left the mountains and descended into the valley. He walked through the dirt streets of a small settlement, a place of worn houses and weary faces. Children stared at him with wide eyes while adults turned away quickly, afraid of the soldier's armor he still wore. At the tavern, Kale spoke to the gathered settlers. His voice was low but steady. "The wild girl is real," he told them. "She is no myth. I have seen her. She fights the Creel and she is not alone. Her dragon lives. Her storm lives. And she asks for your aid." At first, silence answered him. Men and women shifted uneasily. Then an old farmer shook his head. "Fight the Creel?" he muttered. "We can't. We've seen what happens. They burn villages, they kill whole families, we'd be slaughtered." "They'll slaughter us anyway," Kale replied sharply. "Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but it will come. You know it. You've all felt it. We cannot hide forever. But if we rise with her, if we rise with the storm, we might win." The tavern erupted into mutters and arguments. Some were afraid, others doubtful. But a few, just a few, looked thoughtful. Among them was a young woman named Lyra, whose brother had been killed by Creel soldiers. She stood slowly. "If the girl truly commands the storm," she said, "then maybe this is our only chance. I'll fight." Others began to follow her example. One by one voices rose, not all, but enough. Enough to spark a beginning. Kale felt hope stir inside him. Perhaps the settlers were ready after all. But hope was fragile. And far away, betrayal already moved in silence. In the Dominion camp, Zarek reported what he had seen. His voice was filled with cruel satisfaction. "She meets with the human soldier. He is her ally. I saw them together at the ruins of her people. I saw her call lightning." Captain Roven's mandibles clicked with dark amusement. "Excellent, then we know where she hides. Let the human lead us to her. Do not strike too soon. We will surround the mountains, cut off every escape, and close the trap." Zarek inclined his head. "And the settlers?" "Burn their villages," Roven said coldly. "Let them know resistance means death. If they run to the girl for aid, she will reveal herself. And when she does, we will have her." 2 nights later, Kale returned to Serenia and Thyros. His face was tired, but his voice carried a spark. "Some of them will fight," he said. "Not all. but enough to slow the creel, enough to stand with you. Serenia studied him carefully. And the rest? They are afraid, Kyle admitted. But fear can change. If they see you, if they see the storm on their side, they'll follow. She nodded, though her eyes were troubled. Then we must be ready. For once the storm rises, there will be no turning back. Thyros lifted his head, wings shifting, and let out a low growl. His golden eyes turned toward the valley. What is it? Kale asked. Serenia's face hardened. Smoke. They climbed to the cliff's edge and looked down. Black smoke rose from the valley below. Whole villages burned, flames clawing at the sky. Kale's heart sank. The creel. They strike to draw me out, Serenia said, fury in her voice. They burn the homes of innocents to break my will. Kale's fists clenched. We can't let them do this. Serenia placed a hand on Thyros. Then we will not. The following morning, the battle began. The creel marched in full force. Dozens of soldiers in dark armor climbed the mountain trails, carrying energy cannons and storm-dampening devices. At their head rode Captain Rovan, his black banners snapping in the wind. Behind them, mercenaries dragged prisoners from the burning villages, forcing them to kneel in the dirt. Storm Tamer, Rovan's voice boomed, carried on an amplifier. Come forth or these humans will die screaming. Show yourself and we will spare them. High on the cliffs, Serenia stood beside Kale and Thyros. Her hands trembled, not from fear but from rage. They think me weak, she whispered. Kale's jaw tightened. If you go down there, they'll capture you. That's what they want. Her eyes blazed. Then let them see what it means to call the storm. She raised her hands to the sky. At once the clouds darkened, swirling like a whirlpool above the mountains. Thunder cracked. Lightning tore across the heavens. The wind howled, lifting dust and stone. The creel soldiers staggered, their banners ripping to shreds. Some tried to fire their weapons, but the storm bent their aim. Then with a roar like 1,000 drums, Thyros leapt into the air. His wings spread wide, glowing with stormlight, and lightning danced along his scales. The settlers in the valley gasped in awe. For the first time, they saw the legend with their own eyes. The dragon of the storm, alive and furious. Strike, Rovan roared. Bind the beast, net the girl. Energy cannons fired, sending glowing nets upward. Thyros twisted in the air, lightning snapping from his wings to shatter the traps. Serenia lifted her arms, and a wall of wind crashed down, scattering soldiers like leaves. Kale fought at her side, blade flashing as mercenaries charged up the path. He was only one man, but his resolve was unbreakable. For the first time, he fought not as a slave of the Dominion, but as a free man, defending something greater than himself. The storm raged on. The mountain became a battlefield of fire and lightning. Settlers who had once been afraid now lifted weapons, rushing to join the fight. They struck the creel from the sides, driving them back with desperate courage. But the Dominion was relentless. More soldiers climbed, more weapons fired. Slowly, step by step, they pushed closer to the cave, closer to Serenia. Kyle saw it happening. He turned to her, shouting over the roar of the storm. They won't stop. They'll come until we're both dead. Serenia's eyes blazed like fire. Then let them come. She raised her hands high and the sky answered. Lightning struck the mountainside in a torrent, splitting stone, burning soldiers, turning night to day. The roar was deafening, the air shaking with power. For a moment the creel faltered. Even their commander stared in shock as the storm itself seemed to rise in fury. But the cost was heavy. Serenia staggered, her strength draining with every strike. Kale caught her before she fell, holding her upright. You can't, he said urgently. If you give too much, it'll kill you. She looked at him, her face pale but fierce. If I fall, the storm will still live, but if they win, it will die forever. The storm raged like a living beast, thrashing the mountains of Vera. Lightning cleaved the sky and thunder rolled across the cliffs in long, deafening waves. Rain fell in sheets, soaking the battlefield, turning soil into mud and washing away the scent of fear. At the heart of it all, Serenia stood with her arms raised high, her hair whipping around her face. Thyrus hovered above, wings wide, electricity dancing across his scales. Around them, Kyle and the settlers held their ground, struggling against the relentless Dominion soldiers. Captain Rovan shouted commands from the valley below. His black armor gleamed in the flashes of lightning. "Do not falter," he roared. "She cannot survive the storm forever. Push forward." But each time his troops tried to climb the mountain, the storm struck them back. Lightning arched from the clouds to the cliffs. Wind threw men off balance, and Thyros's roar sent waves of sonic force that shattered weapons and armor. Kale ducked behind a fallen boulder, panting, watching soldiers fall to the fury of nature. He could barely see Serenia through the storm's chaos, but he could feel her power, and he knew that if she could hold just a little longer, they might survive. Serenia's strength was waning. Every bolt of lightning she called, every gust of wind she summoned drained her. Her muscles burned and her vision blurred with fatigue. She glanced at Kyle, who had been at her side since the beginning of the siege, shielding settlers, fending off soldiers, and keeping the chaos from breaking apart completely. "Kyle," she shouted over the storm, "I cannot hold this much longer." Kyle ran to her, grabbing her hands to steady her. "Then we do it together," he said. "We'll finish this, don't give up." Serenia nodded, drawing a deep breath. She reached out to the storm, calling it not with fear, but with determination. She called not only for herself, but for the settlers, for Kale, and for every creature under the skies of Vera. Lightning struck again, brighter and hotter than before, arcing from cloud to ground, splitting stone and shattering Dominion weapons. Soldiers screamed as wind and rain tore through their ranks. Settlers pressed forward, emboldened by the display of power, their fear turning into courage. Kale fought alongside them, his blade flashing in the stormlight, cutting down any soldier who came too close. But even as they advanced, he could see the Creel adapting, forming new lines, moving carefully through the chaos. "Serenia," he shouted, "you need Thyros more than ever." The dragon swooped low, lightning dancing along his wings. He struck at the Dominion lines, sending soldiers tumbling and scattering, then rose again to the clouds where he joined with the storm, amplifying Serenia's power. Together, girl and dragon were more than force. They were the storm incarnate. "Captain." Rovan's eyes narrowed as he watched his soldiers falter. "She cannot be allowed to live," he hissed. "Bind her, kill her, destroy the dragon." Zarak approached, dragging energy nets designed for capturing large creatures. "They are strong but not invincible. One strike, one perfect strike, and it will end." Rovan nodded. "Then we aim for the human soldier." Kale was in the thick of the fight, cutting a path through Creel mercenaries to reach Serenia when a squad of elite soldiers ambushed him. Surrounded, he realized instantly what Rovan intended. "Kyle!" Serenia shouted, sensing the danger. Kyle fought valiantly, but the soldiers were many. One grabbed his arm, another swung a stun weapon at him. Just as he braced for a strike, a massive wave of wind threw the soldiers backward, sending them crashing into the mud. Thyros had intercepted them, roaring in fury. Kale rose, heart pounding, and ran to Serenia. "I'm with you," he shouted, and together they faced the last line of Dominion soldiers climbing the cliffs. Serenia knew the final moment had come. The storm answered her call fully now, not just her power, but the bond she shared with Thyros and the land itself. She felt the energy of every lightning bolt, every gust of wind, every rumble of thunder inside her body. It was overwhelming. "Kyle," she gasped, "this may take everything I have." "I don't care," Kyle said firmly. "We either stand or fall together." With a scream that echoed through the mountains, Serenia unleashed the storm in its fullest form. Lightning struck the cliffs in dozens of places at once, splitting rocks, sending sparks flying. Wind tore through the Dominion soldiers like a raging river. Thyros dove through the chaos, unleashing blasts of lightning from his mouth, scattering the enemy further. Even Rovan faltered, watching as the mountain became a wall of thunder, wind, and light. He raised his weapon, but he could not move fast enough to stop it. His soldiers were scattered, their energy nets destroyed, and the storm had become a living shield for Kyle, Serenia, Thyros, and the settlers. The battle reached its climax when the Creel unleashed their final weapon, a massive energy cannon designed to neutralize storms. It hummed, charged, and fired toward Serenia with deadly precision. Serenia's eyes widened. "Kale, hold them back, I must—" She faltered, her strength nearly gone. Kale raised his blade, rallying the settlers. "Everyone, protect her," Thyros roared, diving at the cannon, wings flashing with electricity. The blast struck the dragon, sending a shockwave, but Thyros shielded Serenia, absorbing most of the energy. Lightning from his scales merged with hers, deflecting the cannon's energy harmlessly into the sky. Kale fought at her side, fending off soldiers who tried to climb past. He looked up at her, awe and fear mingled in his heart. "You're incredible," he shouted. Serenia smiled faintly, exhausted, but resolute. "Not me. The storm." And then, with one final surge, she reached deep into her connection with the storm. Energy poured from her like a river of light and sound. Lightning arced across, the sky striking the mountains, the valleys, the Dominion forces. The Creel soldiers could not stand it. The settlers pressed forward, taking advantage of the chaos, driving the remaining soldiers back. Captain Rovan fell to his knees, his soldiers either fleeing or incapacitated by the storm's power. Zarek watched, defeated, as his plans crumbled. Thyros let out a triumphant roar, sending the last of the Dominion soldiers running for their lives. Silence fell after the storm. The rain slowed to a drizzle. Thunder muttered far away in the distance. The valley was soaked, mud and debris covering the battlefield. Smoke rose from small fires, but the Dominion had been shattered, their army broken. Serenia sank to her knees, drained beyond words. Thyros curled around her protectively. Kale dropped beside her, pressing his hand to her shoulder. "You did it," he said, voice trembling. "It's over." Serenia shook her head faintly, smiling tiredly. "Not me. The storm. And you. You stood with me when it mattered most." Kale smiled back. "And I would again." The settlers emerged from hiding, their eyes wide with awe. They had seen the storm, the dragon, and the girl who had commanded them both. Whispers spread quickly through the valley, tales of the last storm Tamir, the human soldier who fought beside her, and the dragon who ruled the skies. Lyra, the young woman who had first rallied the settlers, approached Serenia. "You saved us all," she said. "We owe you everything." Serenia looked at her, exhausted but proud. "No, you saved yourselves. I only gave you a chance." Days passed and the valley slowly returned to life. The Dominion's forces had retreated, nursing their wounds and retreating across the mountains. Rumors of the battle spread across the frontier, and for the first time in generations, humans and settlers dared to hope again. Kale stayed beside Serenia, helping rebuild what the Creel had destroyed. Thyros remained by her side, a constant guardian, his wings no longer needlessly agitated, calm for the first time in years. One evening, as the sun set over the mountains, painting the sky with gold and red, Kyle and Serenia stood together on the cliffs. "The storm," Kyle said quietly, watching clouds drifting peacefully now. "Will always be here. But you gave it a face." Serenia nodded. "I am only the last storm tamer. But the storm belongs to everyone now, and to those who choose to protect it." Thyros rumbled, golden eyes glowing in the fading light. Kale reached out, placing a hand on the dragon's massive snout. The bond was not just between girl and dragon. It was between humans, the wild, and the storm itself. For the first time in centuries, peace had come to the mountains of Vera, and the legend of the last storm tamer spread across worlds. A story of courage, loyalty, and the unbreakable bond between a human, a dragon, and the power of the storm. Kale smiled at Serenia. "What happens now?" Serenia looked out over the valleys and mountains, wind tugging at her hair. "Now," she said, "we make sure the storms are never chained again, and that the frontier remembers. Hope can still rise even against the greatest power." The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the valley. Lightning flashed faintly in the distance, not from war, but from life, from energy, from the pulse of the storm itself. Together, the human soldier, the last storm tamer, and her dragon stood at the edge of the mountains, guardians of a new future. The storm had spoken, and the world listened.